Hi everyone. So this lesson is the first lesson in our next mini unit. It's chapter 5, and there's only like 4 sections. So it goes pretty fast. This first one is called Special Segments in Triangles. So it's more work with triangles, but learning about some special segments. Some of them we've actually already learned about, but there's a couple new ones mixed in. So this first one we haven't directly learned about. It's called a perpendicular bisector. We know what perpendicular means. Well, hopefully we know what perpendicular means. It lines that intersect to make right angles, right? We know what bisect means. Again, hopefully we know that bisect means cuts in half. So a perpendicular bisector is a segment or line that intersects a side of a triangle at a 90-degree angle. That's the perpendicular part, and also cuts the segment into two congruent segments. So if you look at this picture here, if I had this triangle A, B, C, and let's call this D. If I said BD is a perpendicular bisector, we could mark a couple things. So this is how the practice is going to go. You'll be given a picture. It might say BD is a perpendicular bisector. So then you would then go ahead and mark that these are right angles, and that also these two segments are congruent, AD and DC. So that's what a perpendicular bisector does. It cuts a side in half, and it makes two right angles. So every triangle can have 3 perpendicular bisectors. You could have one on each side. I'm not going to draw them all in here, but next week we're going to talk about what happens when you have all 3 of them drawn in. So here's an example. It says ray BD is the perpendicular bisector of segment AC. Find X. And then I also gave you that the measure of angle DBA was 32 degrees, and I asked you to find angle A. So DBA is this angle here. That's 32, and I want you to find that one. So let's do one thing at a time. Let's do X first. So if this is a perpendicular bisector, these two segments are congruent, CD and DA. So what would we do? Set them equal to each other. Remember, anytime 2 values are equal, you're going to set them equal to each other. Then we're going to solve for X. So I'm going to subtract 3X from both sides and then add 6. So that's going to be 2X equals 14, and X is 7. Okay, so that's X. And now let's think about the measure of angle A. So this was not just a bisector, but a perpendicular bisector. So the word perpendicular, remember, means that we have right angles. So that means that where this D is right here, angle BDA, that's a right angle. So take a look at this triangle we have. We have a 90-degree angle, a 32-degree angle, and we're trying to find the last one. So to find the measure of angle A, all we have to do is add 32 and 90, and then subtract from 180, because the 3 angles in a triangle add to 180. So 32 plus 90 is 122, and then we have to just do 180 minus 122, which is 58. So that's the measure of angle A. Okay, so there's our first example, perpendicular bisector. The next segment is an angle bisector. We've talked about angle bisectors earlier in the year. We just never really talked about them in a triangle. So an angle bisector is a segment or a line that cuts an angle in half. So let's label this again. Let's do R, S, T, X. So let's say that XS is an angle bisector. Whoops, not XX. Whoops. X is an angle bisector. When you are told that you have an angle bisector in a picture, you can mark congruent angles. So these two are equal. So if I gave you 2 algebraic expressions, they'd be equal to each other. If I said this one was 50, then this one would be 50. They're equal. That's what an angle bisector does, gives you congruent angles. So here's an example. It says MR is the angle bisector of NMP. So let's look at the picture. That means that angle 1 and angle 2 are equal. So let's see what I gave you. I gave you that angle 1 is 5x plus 8. This picture is really small, so typically you're going to label, but it's really tiny. And then NMP this got cut off a little bit, but MMP is this one here. That's the whole thing. This is supposed to be a P. This is supposed to be an M. NMP, the whole thing, is 12x plus 2. So you may be tempted to set these two values equal to each other, the 5x plus 8 and the 12x plus 2. You have to be careful. They're not equal. 1 is equal to 2. 1 is not equal to NMP. It's the whole thing. This is this big angle. Since 1 and 2 are equal, I can say that this side is also 5x plus 8. And then I can just add those two together and set it equal to the big one. Remember angle addition from earlier in the year? Small plus small equals big. Remember that? So 5x plus 8 plus 5x plus 8, small angle plus small angle, angle 1 plus angle 2, equals 12x plus 2, angle NMP. And then we'll just solve for x. So I'm going to combine like terms on the left. So 5x and 5x is 10x, 8 and 8 is 16. Okay, I'm going to subtract 10x and then subtract 2. So that's going to be 14 equals 2x, and then divide by 2, x equals 7. So that's angle bisector. Okay, let's look at the next one. So those two are kind of like, we already know about those. These next two are brand new. So the next one's called a median. If you think about what a median, if any of you drive, or you might just know what a median is, like in the highway, the median is like the barrier that's in the middle. And that's not necessarily a barrier, actually, just kidding. A median is, it could be like a patch of grass or something, but it's basically, it's in the middle of the highway, right? Think about what a median is. So median, think middle. That's my whole point here of me even saying that is when you think median, I want you to think middle. So what a median does is it connects a vertex of a triangle to the midpoint of the opposite side. So this point here is the midpoint, meaning that these two pieces are congruent. That's what a median gives you. Median gives you midpoint, think middle. So in this picture, let's do, oops, whoa, that's not what I wanted. Go away. Let's do E, F, G, H, and let's say FH is a median. So if FH is a median, then EH is congruent to HG. Okay, here's an example. It says BD is a median. So BD is a median, making this congruent to this. This one's pretty straightforward. What do we know about them? We know that they're equal because D is the midpoint. So this one, you're just going to set them equal to each other. You want to be careful though, just like in the last one, how I gave you the small piece and the big piece on your practice. There's one like that where I give you the small piece and the big piece. So it's important to pay attention to that. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, subtract 6x. So I'm going to get x equals 4. Pretty easy. Okay. And our next one is altitude. That's our last one. So an altitude, to get you thinking about what this one means, if any of you have ever been on a plane at some point, or maybe several points, I don't really know, throughout your flight, your pilot might be like, oh, we are now at a cruising altitude of blah, blah, blah feet, however many feet. Altitude. So picture a plane in the air. The altitude is how high it is, right? Straight down to the ground, and it's perpendicular to the ground. Picture this is the ground on the bottom. So see, picture an airplane. It just makes a right angle with the ground. So an altitude is the height, basically. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of that. So an altitude makes a right angle. That's what I want you to remember here. It makes a 90-degree angle. And that's all it does. It doesn't bisect anything. It just makes right angles. So PLAN, trying to spell plane there. If I said LA is an altitude, we could then mark that you have right angles. So there might be some on the practice today, I'm pretty sure there's some on the practice where they tell you it's an altitude, which means that you have two 90-degree angles, right? But then I also give you like segments. Your segments don't go in your equation. Okay, so if I give you extra stuff, oh, actually, I forgot, I changed this example. Here, this example down here will show it perfectly. So it says PT is an altitude. Find X and XT if the measure of angle PTS is equal to 5x plus 10. So PTS is here, 5x plus 10. And XT, this little segment, is 2x minus 5. So this segment has nothing to do with the angle. It's just there because we're being asked to find XT. I purposely put this example on here because there are ones like this on the practice. So that's what I was talking about earlier. So anyway, what do I know about PTS though? I know nothing about this. So we're going to forget that for a second. I do know that this PTS, because we have an altitude, that it's 90 degrees because this is a right angle and this is a right angle by definition of an altitude. So what we can do is we can take 5x plus 10 and set it equal to 90. And then solve. So subtract 10. So we have 5x equals 80. So x is 16. Now we can use that to find xt. So I'm going to take this x off of it. Now we can find xt. I crossed it off because I don't want you to think like, I feel like so many kids would just be like, oh, they gave me two things. Why don't we add those to 180? Like, no, not everything adds to 180. So anyway, this one is equal to 90, which we already solved. We got x is 16. So now we can take x is 16 and plug it in here for xt. So we're going to have 2 times 16 minus 5. 2 times 16 is 32. Minus 5 would be 27. So the measure of that segment is 27. So again, the segment and the angle are completely unrelated. I just wanted to get that out there for when you see it on your practice. Okay, so that's all of them. I'm just going to do a quick recap on this last page. So there are 4 segments that we learned. We have angle bisector, gives you 2 congruent angles. Then we have an altitude, gives you 90-degree angles. Then we have a median, which gives you 2 congruent segments. And then lastly, we have a perpendicular bisector, which is kind of like a combination of an altitude and a median. It gives you right angles. And it gives you 2 congruent segments. How cool is that? Well, I think it's cool. You may not. It's very late right now, in case you're wondering why I keep saying random things. Okay, so that's my recap. You could always rewatch too and take a look at the filled in notes, but we are going to do more of this tomorrow. So please make sure you still try the practice for today, and then we'll go over it tomorrow and do more practice tomorrow. All right, that's it. Have a great day. I'll see you guys tomorrow.